Remember when Mario was only a franchise of platforming games where your only goal is to make it safely to the end of the stage? Yeah, me neither. For as long as most can remember, Nintendo's mascot was a fat, short dude with a red hat and blue overalls who was professionally adept as friggin' Barbie. The man was a plumber, a doctor, soccer player, golfer, tennis player, menace to society, a baby, referee, and, on topic with this review, a kart racer. In this day and age, it's weird to think of a Nintendo console without a Mario Kart game, but before the Super Nintendo, that was the reality. So they went a whole console before corrupting their mascot with speed. At least they held back longer than Sony did with theirs. Of course, there are a whole slew of Mario Kart games to play instead of this one. 8+ at least, so is it worth pulling a Yui and venturing back to the past? It's always worth returning to one's roots. So Mario, let's take a look at your first driving test, see how well you did. Must have done pretty well to get 8+ after this. I expect to be impressed. Now, being a racing game, there is only the gameplay laid out on the road before you. And what a barren road this one is. Hey, no judging here. This one was a turning point for the Mario Kart franchise. As in, there was no franchise before this one, so having a sparse amount of content while they tested the waters was fair, especially since games during this time were fairly sparse in general. Explaining the gameplay in a Mario Kart game might seem a tad silly, but this is a review, so let's get to it. Super Mario Kart is a racing game. I know, right? In Super Mario Kart, your goal is to beat your opponents to the finish line, tossing items, dodging obstacles, and generally being a menace to your adversaries on your way to victory. Of course, this is the first game in the series, so expect the formula to be a little incomplete. You see, this here game is definitely focused on the multiplayer side of things compared to keeping a lonely Nintendo nerd like me company on cold winter nights like any of the others. You have 3 ways of play to engage in here: Grand Prix, Time Trial, and Battle Mode. Grand Prix is what you'd expect. You select a cup, take part in a select number of courses, and try your damnedest to make it to the end of 5 laps before your opponents. You earn points based on your placing, and your points are tallied up for your placing in the actual cup. What's different here is that you have lives. Lives that take effect if you place under 4th in a race. Run out of lives and you get a game over. It might sound odd that this game is allergic to losers, but that's because it is odd. Time Trial is what it is, a race for the best time. In Battle is a 2-player only mode where you and a mate kill each other for dominance. All basic stuff that wouldn't even cause a blip on the radar if it wasn't for that signature Mario Kart charm. That charm being famous and iconic Mario characters tossing shit at each other, putting each other's lives at risk for a chance at the gold. That is still here, with plenty of the items found here remaining in the game today. What is different here, and ties back into that whole multiplayer focus I mentioned, is that the players are the only ones really participating in normal gameplay. What I mean by that is that the players are the only ones firing weapons, picking up coins and items, and participating in regular gameplay. The AI are basically glorified obstacles, rarely changing position in a race, and only firing one weapon, a weapon unique to each character. It gives the game a hollow feeling, a feeling that's pounded into the experience even more by the screen permanently being forced into split screen mode, with the second player's screen being occupied by a gigantic map of the course. It really makes the game feel cheap. The game is also as loose as can be without being uncontrollable. Characters veer off the road at every slight turn, making it next to impossible to take sharp turns. While the formula is here, it's beyond basic and incredibly rough. It's fun, but barely, and only on 50cc. Anything higher and it gets a little too much for this gamer to handle. This game is pure Super Nintendo to look at. Limited sprites, 20 courses with only a handful of themes and assets, basic AI. This is definitely a game of its time. The stages look good from a glance, but the real impressive thing at the time is Mode 7. Mode 7, the Super Nintendo effect that emulates 3D, makes this game look a bit better than it actually does, as the limited sprites don't do it any favors. Paying attention, you'll see that each character has no varying sprites. They have a single pose from each side, and then a celebratory one at the end of a race. It's shockingly limited compared to Nintendo's typical output. It does its job, but the limited course visuals makes it hard to determine what course you are on unless you are really used to them. On the music side of things, the music is catchy and fits the stages, but it isn't as standout as its peers at the time. Metroid, Zelda, Mario World, F-Zero, all of these are more known for their music. Super Mario Kart's music is fine, but it's catchier than it is memorable or good. Overall, the game looks and sounds fine, just not as standout as it used to be. It's incredibly hard to nail your first shot at something, and Nintendo don't always succeed either. Super Mario Kart is a very flawed game at its core. To summarize all the game's problems, the tracks are too samey looking, the handling could be leagues better, the AI aren't actually playing the game, and the forced multiplayer view really make it an oddity that hasn't aged well at all. It's a fun curiosity piece, but other than that, it falls a bit flat. At the end of the race, Super Mario Kart sure does finish. Look, the game is ancient as far as most of us are concerned, so it was always at risk of falling out of favor. This was definitely a case of the first sequel making the original irrelevant, but it is fun to go and see where things started. It's a fun little game, and it's impressive to see how much of the formula is already in place from the get-go, but it is a battered old bucket that's not going to hold much water. This is like visiting a recreation of a historic village. It's fun to go and laugh at all the people who don't know what a Nintendo Switch is, but you don't want to stay there just in case what those workers have is contagious, and then you start to forget how to turn on a GameCube and put a Double Dash disc in. In the present day, Super Mario Kart gets hit with a billion red shells, passes the finish line, and takes home a 6 out of 10. It functions and has some fun, but in the time it takes to open up Switch Online and open up this game, you can pop in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and be playing a superior one. Just saying. At least a certificate of participation will look good on the wall. Hope no one notices it isn't mine.